Hey, good morning. Trying to get things figured out here, but I think I'm good now. So today we're going to look at the slope of a line, which I'm hoping that you remember some of this from your junior high days. Yesterday I kind of surveyed the kids that were in class, and they all pretty much said, yeah, they've heard the formula of m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So I'm hoping today we'll go kind of like as a refresher that we can kind of hone in on some of the little details about what the slope means and putting it into words. So if you would just pause the video and do the warm-up, I have the answers on the next page. So come back when you're done. All right, so hopefully you're back. Now, it was kind of like a little bit of a trick here because on number 2, 3, and 4, if you look at the scale over there, we're counting by twos. So we got to kind of, as we're growing here, make sure we know what the scale is. And so they might have fooled you. I hope not. Anyhow, the slope of a line is the steepness of the line. That's what we're going to look at today. W got -6, -4. X is the coordinate 4, -5. Y is 5, 3. Very important what we were talking about yesterday is anytime I'm doing a rate of change, we want to get it down to a 1 on my rate of change here. So this is very, very important that, in this case, we could have left it as 8 ounces over 2 servings. See, but we want to get it down to per serving. Okay, so reduce your fractions. Even on rate of change, get it down to 1, even if the numerator has to be a decimal in order to do that. Okay, so on the paper you corrected today, you'll see that I got them all down to a unit of 1, yesterday's paper. All right, so today we're going to find the slope by using the formula. Again, back in Alaska, a lot of kids don't know what a reservoir is, but we have plenty of them here in Arizona. So in the previous lesson, slope was described as a constant rate of change of a line. You saw how to find the slope of a line by using a graph. There's also a formula that you can use to find the slope of a line, which usually represents by the letter m. Very important. You can write the word, or you can use the letter m. All right, so if you would do me a favor, this is the important part right here. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now, pretty soon, you're not going to keep writing all these things on your paper because you will just see the pattern here. And my hope is that you will kind of just use the pattern. So here's the deal. Looking over here on this side here, this is my x value, and this is my y value. And so we're going to call this coordinate 1. So that's why we have the sub 1s there. Over here, we're going to say this is my second coordinate. So it's still my x value here and my y value here, but these are going to be x and y sub 2s. So if you look at the formula down here, the formula says x or y sub 2. So that was my 4. That's why they put that there. There's a minus in the formula. Very, very important. It's always a minus in the formula. -3, y sub 1. And then we go back to the denominator. X sub 2, which was 1, minus x sub 1, which was a 2. We have a minus here in the numerator, which would become a positive, so that becomes a positive 7. 1 minus 2 is a minus 1, and so our final answer, m equals -7. You could also say -7 over 1, which would be okay too. All right, so that's what we're going to do today. So here we are practicing it. If they give us 2 coordinates and no graph, you can, for a little while, or as long as it takes, right up here, that's my x sub 1, y sub, oops, I put a 2 there. I got my new pen yesterday, so I got to figure out my eraser here. That's y sub 1. And then over here is my x sub 2, y sub 2. That means, just the sub means it's the second coordinate. So here we go. We say m equals 2 minus -2 over -1 minus 4. All right. As we remember back in a couple months ago, whenever I have a minus, it becomes a plus. So in my numerator here, I have a 4, and over down here in the denominator, I got a -5. So can't reduce that fraction anymore. So I'm not going to get this down to a unit rate of 1 because it's not a word problem or anything like that where I need to do a rate of change. I'm just going to leave this as a slope. It's a negative 4/5. Now you can put that negative sign anywhere you want. Most of the time we just put it out in front like this. All right? So let's practice it a couple times. Do these guys, A, B, and C, and I have them on the next page, so pause your video and come back when you're done. Take a little bit, especially with the fraction ones, but they're all common denominators down there, so that helped you out tremendously. Okay, let's see how you did here. On the first one, I got a slope of 0. There's my work. The second one, I have a slope of 3. Now, you could have wrote it as a 3 or a 3/1. Both of those answers would be okay. And on the last one, we don't really want to leave it as a 1/2. So I got it down to a decimal. Half is the same as 0.5. So, and then I took 1 and divided it by 0.5, and I got a slope of 2. That's going to help us when we kind of get it to a whole number like that when we go from back to graphing. Okay. So here we have 2 coordinates, our graph. Honestly, if they gave me a graph and told me to find a slope, I would do what we were practicing yesterday. I would say it goes up 1, 2, 3. My rise is 3, and my run is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know my slope on this one should be m equals 3/4. But let's practice using the coordinates just to see if we come up 3/4 as well. So I want to put my coordinates down here. My coordinates that they gave me were -2, 1, and 2, 2. I can give any coordinates on here. I could have chose a different one, but I'm looking for whole numbers. I don't see another whole number anywhere. So those would have been good ones to choose. So let's go down. This is my x(1), y(1), x(2), y(2). So I'm going to have m equals 2 minus 1 and 2 minus 2, because there's a negative sign in the number and a negative sign in the formula. Minus minus becomes a plus. So I want to come over here now, and I want to say 2 minus 1 is 1. So what happened here? 2 minus 1. We should have the same. What happened here? Did I not copy the numbers down right? I sure didn't, because this is a -1 here. -2 minus 1. I didn't see that. So 2, 2. So I want to go back here and I want to rewrite it here. I was thinking our formula should be the same, or our slope should be the same. So let me go back. This darn eraser here. Sometimes it wants to. I'll figure it out. All right. So I want to go back here so we can check this out. So I have a 2 minus -1. And on the denominator, I have 2 minus -2. Both of these guys come pluses. Now it's looking the same. I have a positive 3/4. M equals 3/4. All right. When they give me the coordinates over here in a table like this, you can pick any one you want. It doesn't matter which one you do. So I want to pick some easy one. I want to say 2, 0. Now you have to get it in order. This is my x's here, and this is my y's. And then I'm going to pick 2, 1. You can pick any ones you want. You will get the same slope if you do your math correctly. So m equals 1 minus 0 over 2 minus 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. And 1 minus 0 is 1. This gets back to that 0 deal. Put it into the calculator. A lot of kids want to say it's 0, but if you do 1 divided by 0, you're going to get errors. So in this one, my slope is undefined. Okay. All right. So here's 4 for you to try. 2 with the graph, 2 with the chart. If you're really feeling comfortable with the slope, I don't mind if you use the graph and just do your rise and run. I would. They're going to give me the graph and ask me to find the slope. But practice being able to use the formula too, because we have to be efficient at both of them. So pause your video and then come on back when you're done, and we'll see if we have matching answers. Okay, let's see how we did. I got m equals a half on the first one. B, I got m equals -3. I did the rise and run on both my graphs. Problem number 2, I used the formula. I got m equals 2. You can see the coordinates that I used up above there. And on 2D, I got m equals -3/2. Now you can leave it that way. He said -1.5, that would be okay too, but that would be a little bit harder to grasp. So again, if we were doing slope and we're writing equations and graphing, I would leave it as a -3/2. But if they were asking me in a word problem about what it means, then I'd get it down to a unit rate. And you're going to see that right here. So the graph shows how much water is in the reservoir at different times. Find the slope of the line, then tell what the slope represents. So looking at this line already, as I go reading my graph from left to right, I see it's a negative slope. So when my answer better have a negative slope when I'm all done. So again, it doesn't matter which one you call coordinate 1 or which one you call coordinate 2. Again, if you do your math correctly, it doesn't matter. You will still come out with the same slope. If we had some time, I would prove that to you. So in this case, this is my x sub 1 or 2, y sub 2. This is my x sub 1, y sub 1. So x sub 2, 2,000 minus 3,000 over 60 minus 20. So here I get a 40, here I get 1,000, but it's a negative 1,000. And now if I take 1,000 and divide it by 40, I get a negative 25 over 1. So there's my slope. But now I have to say what my slope means. So now what you need to do is go back to your units. I know that this number up here is my y value, and this number down here is my x value. So if I go down to time, this is 1 hour, and then this is 1,000 cubic feet. So that's negative 25,000. And so since it's a negative, that means the water is leaving our reservoir. So now in words, the reservoir is going down. And we have to use numbers. Going down would be my negative 25,000 cubic feet per hour. That's how we would interpret that in words. And again, on word problems and graphs like this that we're using in real life, we want to get it down to per hour. In this case, it just happened to be per hour, but because we reduced our fraction. But if it was something that wasn't reducible over 40, well, we'd make it into a decimal to get it down to 1, kind of like we were doing yesterday. And I think that's going to happen in this plant here. So let's do the plant here. When the graph is like this, to do the rise and run is a little bit difficult because they're counting by 10, but you still could do it. Sometimes it's just faster to do it with the slope formula. For example, I'm going to say 10 minus 20 and 30 minus 50. My line should be a positive slope when I do my answer here. So if I'm coming up with a negative, so that would be a minus 10 over a minus 20. Okay, see now I have a negative divided by negative, which is a positive. And that would reduce down to a positive 1/2. But I don't want it per 2. So let's see, this is my x up, this is my y up here, and this is my x. I don't want it per 2 days, I want it per day. And so this is one where we're going to kind of do some converting and make it into a decimal, because I don't want how much it's growing per 2 days. So if I take 1 and divide it by 2, I got m equals 0.5 over 1. Now let's go ahead and put our units. This is my centimeters of height, And this is my days down here, because this will help me when I have to write what it means. And so here, the title of the graph is the plant grows. So the plant is growing at a rate of 0.5 centimeters per day. Okay, so again, when we do unit rates, we want to get it down to a 1 in the denominator. It's still slope, we're just getting it down to 1. I have to run over and turn my lights on real quick here, so pause for a second. When they give us an equation like this and they say find a slope, I look at that equation, I notice that it's already in standard form. Here's my x's and here's my y's. And then I have my units over there on the right all by itself. So here's what I would do on this if they asked me to find the slope. I would put a 0 in for my y to find my x-intercept. So basically this goes away. So I put a 0, I want to put it down here, a 0 in for my y, and I want to find my x. So my math problem in my head says 6x equals 30. So I would divide both sides by 6, and x equals a 5. So there's my first coordinate. And then I would say, okay, let's go over here and let's find my y-intercept. So on my y-intercept, I'm going to put a 0 in for my x. So this goes away. So my math problem says minus 5y equals 30. Divide by negative 5. And I get a negative 6. So there's my two coordinates now that I can use the slope formula for. So I'm going to say m equals minus 6 minus 0, y sub 2 minus y sub 1. And then I'm going to go to my x sub 2, 0 minus 5. Minus 6 minus 0 is still a minus 6. 0 minus 5 is a minus 5. A negative divided by negative is a positive. 6/5 is kind of reduced. Not kind of, it is. So my slope is 6/5. It's not a word problem, so I don't need to get it down to a unit rate of 1. So I'm just going to leave it that way. All right, so here's one for you to give it a shot. So pause your video and then come back when you're done. I don't have the answer on the next page, but I'll walk through it and then you can kind of check your work and see how you did compared to mine. Okay, so pause your video and give it a shot. It's always best to give it a shot so that, you know, if you don't get it right, you can kind of see where you made a mistake. All right, well, welcome back. So here's the deal. I want to put a 0 in for my y, so I want to find my x-intercept first. So my math problem says 2x equals 12, which equals x equals 6. So now I'm going to put a 0 in for my x, and I see 3y equals 12, so I put a 0 in for my x, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So here's my coordinate. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So I get 4 over negative 6. Okay, but that can be reduced to 2/3. So my slope is 2/3, negative 2/3. Again, most of the time we just put the negative sign out front. As long as you have one negative sign, it doesn't matter if it goes for the 2 or the 3. It's still a negative slope. I know my line is going to go down in a downward fashion. That is, I'm going to go down 2 over 3 every time when I'm graphing this guy. Okay, it would be go down 2 over 3. All right, so let's look at today. Sometimes kids on this paper have a little hard time on how to do this first part here. So they're assuming that this is your x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And so they're kind of helping us saying 2 minus 1. So they put it in for us here. So then you have to go along the same pattern. 9 minus 3, which would be 6. And our slope would be m equals 1/6. Okay? So kind of that's what they're doing here, is they're trying to guide you through the boxes here to get your slope. And then down here, you have to do it on your own. Okay? And then make sure when you get to these word problems that you kind of pay attention. So the box is sold here and profit. So maybe do this problem real quick and then we'll do this one together just so that we're kind of on the same page here. Okay, so here's what I'm looking for on this one. If I want to use the graph on this one to find the slope because it's nice and easy. So it looks like we're going up by 1. So my rise is 1, 2, 3, 4. I went up 4 and I went over 1, 2. Which that's the same as 2 over 1. Now I'm going to assign my labels. Again, the numerator is my y, so this is my profit, probably in dollars, and then this is my boxes sold. So now to tell what the slope represents, well, first of all, we need to say the slope was 2 over 1. And so now we have to put it in words. For I make $2, usually you start at the top. We're going to assume it's dollars. $2 profit for every box sold. And what is this, cereal? Oh, popcorn. That's what the slope means. Let's make sure we answered everything. It says find the slope. We did tell what the slope represents. Again, you have to have numbers in there. You just can't say, oh, they're making 2 for 1. Profit, you got to have the labels in there for every box of popcorn sold. Okay, so this one's going to be talking about pizza crust and how much flour is used. Okay, all right, so make sure you do that. All right. Oh, here's one more. Sometimes kids get a little crazy on this one. So we're going to put a 0 in for the y because they just told us that. Here's the equation right here. So they're walking us through it. So that just leaves me with 2x equals negative 10. Well, how am I going to get the x by itself? I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And x equals negative 5. Okay. Over here now, I'm going to put a 0 in for my x. Right there it is. So now my equation says 5y equals negative 10. We're going to divide both sides by 5. And so now my y equals a negative 2. So now they want you to plug in the coordinates. The line contains my x value was a negative 5. That was way over here. And my y value was a negative 2. That goes right there. So now do the formula. Negative 2 minus 0 over 0 minus 5. And then finish it off. Okay? Sometimes when they help us like that, they're over helping us and it gets a little confusing. But here you have to do it on your own. Okay? All right, so that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow.